Picture this. You're floating through space in a dying ship, watching your entire civilization slowly fade away. That's exactly what happened to the Kithera. Their bioships. Yeah, they literally grew their spacecraft like we might grow plants. Were falling apart after 3 whole generations of running from something that completely destroyed their homeworld. These weren't metal ships with engines. Imagine if your house was alive, breathing, feeding you, protecting you. Now imagine watching it slowly die around you. Ambassador Maya stood in what used to be the heart of their flagship, watching the bio walls turn gray and brittle. The organic corridors that once pulsed with life now felt cold under her feet. Children who had never seen a real planet were getting sick because the ships couldn't make clean air anymore. The food growing chambers were failing. Even the water recyclers were shutting down one by one. Maya's people had been space nomads for so long that some of the younger ones didn't even remember what solid ground felt like. The Kithera had been running for over 60 years from something they called the Devourers, machines that didn't just destroy planets. They consumed everything, every living thing, every drop of water, every breath of air. When the Devourers found your world, there was no fighting back. You either ran, or you became fuel for their endless hunger. So the Kithera ran and kept running, watching their beautiful bioships slowly starve in the empty darkness between stars. Then their long-range sensors picked up something incredible, a blue-green world orbiting a yellow star. Not just any world. This one was absolutely bursting with life. Forests, oceans, millions of different species, all living together on one planet. The ship's organic computers, what little was left of them, calculated they had just enough energy for one final jump. One last desperate gamble. Maya knew this was it. If this world's inhabitants were hostile, her people would die in space. If they were friendly but couldn't help, her people would still die, just slower. As she gave the order to broadcast their distress signal, she wondered what kind of beings lived on this beautiful world. In her species' long history of traveling between stars, they'd met exactly 3 other intelligent species. 2 had ignored them completely. 1 had actually shot at them. So when Earth's response came back, nobody was prepared for what happened next. The signal wasn't a weapons lock or a demand to stay away. It was something Maya's people had never heard before. This is Earth medical response. We're sending help. Hold your position and prepare for assistance. Medical response? Not military. Not defense forces. Doctors. Dr. James Wilson was having his morning coffee when the alert came in. The message was simple but unprecedented. Alien ships in distress, requesting immediate humanitarian aid. While government officials argued about protocols and potential threats, Wilson was already suiting up. He'd spent 15 years in emergency medicine, pulling people from car wrecks, treating heart attacks, saving lives without asking questions first. This was just another emergency call, except this time the patients happened to be from another star system. Wilson assembled a team of volunteer medics and engineers. They loaded up hospital ships with medical supplies, food, water, and portable life support systems. No weapons, no soldiers, just doctors and nurses ready to help whoever needed help. When government officials tried to stop them, Wilson asked one simple question. If you were dying in space and called for help, what kind of response would you want? As the human medical ships approached the failing Kithera fleet, Maya watched through her bioship's dying sensors. She'd spent her whole life studying other species, learning their languages, understanding their customs. But nothing in her databases had prepared her for this. These humans were risking their own lives to help complete strangers from another world. They didn't know if the Kithera were dangerous. They didn't know if this was some kind of trap. They just knew someone needed help, and that was enough. When Dr. Wilson's team boarded the first bioship, Maya was there to meet them. Through her translator device, she heard Wilson's first words. Don't worry. We're here to help. Tell me what you need. Not what you want, or why are you here, or prove you're not a threat. Just what do you need? For the first time in 3 generations, Maya felt something her people had almost forgotten. Hope. These humans were about to teach her species something that wasn't in any database or history book. Sometimes the strongest response to danger isn't building bigger weapons or higher walls. Sometimes it's opening your door to strangers and asking how you can help. Back on Earth, chaos was unfolding in government buildings around the world. Emergency sessions ran through the night as politicians argued about what to do with over 50,000 alien refugees who had nowhere else to go. Some wanted to help. Others wanted them gone immediately. Meanwhile, something absolutely heartbreaking was happening to the Kithera ships. Picture watching your childhood home slowly dissolve in acid. That's what the Kithera experienced as their bioships started breaking down in Earth's atmosphere. These ships weren't built from metal and plastic like ours. They were grown from living tissue over decades, breathing and healing themselves like giant organisms. But Earth's air was poison to them. The organic hulls began to crack and bleed. Walls that had been strong enough to survive asteroid impacts were now crumbling like wet paper. Maya stood in what used to be her family's quarters, watching green fluid seep through the ceiling. Her people were losing everything they had left. Their ships weren't just transportation. They were their entire culture, their history, their identity. Every bioship contained libraries grown into walls, art sculptures that had been alive for centuries, even family trees that were literally trees holding the genetic memory of entire bloodlines. All of it was dying. Dr. Wilson worked around the clock, setting up emergency shelters. Military bases were converted overnight into refugee camps. Sports stadiums became temporary hospitals. The logistics were insane. How you house 50,000 beings who breathe different air, eat different food, and need completely different medical care? Wilson barely slept for 3 weeks straight, coordinating between human doctors and Kithera healers who communicated through chemical signals instead of words. That's when Maya learned her first human word that had no translation in her language, charity. In Kithera culture, you helped others because they could help you back later, or because they were family, or because your clan leader ordered it. The idea of helping strangers just because they needed help was completely foreign. Maya watched human volunteers working 16-hour days in the refugee camps, getting nothing in return except the knowledge that they were doing good. She asked Wilson why humans would sacrifice their time, money, and energy for beings they'd never see again. Wilson just shrugged and said, "Because you needed help and we could give it. That's enough." But not everyone felt that way. Senator Davis was building a political career on fear and hatred. He held rallies claiming the Kithera were advanced scouts for an invasion force. Their biotechnology could be weaponized. He argued their ships dissolving was just a trick to make humans let their guard down. Davis showed Doctor photos of Kithera bioweapons from their war-torn past, claiming they were planning to use them on Earth cities. The fear campaigns worked on some people. Protests started outside the refugee camps. Some humans threw rocks at the temporary shelters. Others spray-painted hate messages on the walls. Maya couldn't understand how the same species that sent medical ships to save strangers could also produce people filled with such hatred for those same strangers. Then everything changed when the children started getting sick. It began with just a few Kithera kids feeling weak and tired. Their parents thought it was just stress from losing their homes. But within days, dozens of children were collapsing. Their alien immune systems, which had evolved to fight diseases from their home star system, were completely helpless against Earth bacteria and viruses that humans didn't even notice. Maya's own nephew, a boy named Keth who was only 12 years old, was among the sickest. His breathing became labored, his skin turned pale gray, and he couldn't keep food down. Maya sat by his bedside in the human hospital, watching him slowly fade away despite everything the human doctors tried. The language barrier was killing him just as much as the illness. Human medicine and Kithera biology were so different that the doctors couldn't figure out what was wrong, let alone how to fix it. That's when Dr. Wilson proposed something that sounded like science fiction. The Kithera had biomedics who could interface directly with living systems through neural connections. If Wilson could temporarily link his mind with one of these alien healers, they might be able to bridge the gap between human medicine and Kithera biology. The risks were enormous. No human had ever attempted direct neural contact with an alien mind. Wilson could die, go insane, or suffer permanent brain damage. Even if it worked, His DNA would be permanently altered by the Kithra biomatter needed for the connection. He'd become something between human and alien, never fully either one again. Wilson looked at Maya's dying nephew and made his choice. Let's do it. The procedure took place in a heavily shielded medical bay with both human and Kithra specialists standing by. Maya watched as bioorganic tendrils connected Wilson's brain to the Kithra healer named Vex. Wilson's body convulsed as alien thoughts merged with human consciousness. For 6 terrifying hours, nobody knew if either of them would survive. When it was over, Wilson's eyes had changed. They held flecks of the same silver color as Kithra eyes. His blood now carried alien genetic markers that would be part of him forever. But it worked. The combined knowledge of human medicine and Kithra healing saved not just Keth, but all the dying children. Wilson had sacrificed his pure humanity to become a bridge between species. Unfortunately, that made him the perfect target for people like Senator Davis, who now had a new rallying cry. The aliens weren't just invading Earth. They were corrupting humans from the inside. 6 months after first contact, the honeymoon period was officially over. What started as a heartwarming story of species helping species had turned into something much darker and more complicated. The refugee camps that once symbolized human compassion were now surrounded by razor wire and security checkpoints. Protesters gathered outside the gates every day, some holding signs asking for the aliens to go home, others defending their right to stay. Then came the morning that changed everything. At 6:47 a.m. on a Tuesday, a bomb exploded inside the New Geneva Refugee Center during breakfast time. The blast tore through the dining hall where human volunteers were serving food alongside Kithra families. 12 Kithra died instantly, including 3 children who were learning to read English from their human teachers. 3 human aid workers also lost their lives. People had given up comfortable jobs to help strangers from another world. Maya arrived at the scene 20 minutes after the explosion. She walked through the rubble, stepping over scattered toys and homework assignments written in both human and Kithra languages. The smell of smoke mixed with something else, fear, pure, raw terror from both species. Children from both worlds were crying in languages the other couldn't understand, but grief sounds the same everywhere. Dr. Wilson was already there, treating the wounded. His hybrid blood had made him incredibly sensitive to biosignatures, and he could smell the explosive residue that normal humans couldn't detect. This wasn't random, he told Maya quietly as he bandaged a young Kithra girl's arm. Someone planned this specifically to kill as many as possible from both species. The bombing did exactly what the terrorists wanted. Trust between humans and Kithra plummeted overnight. Senator Davis held a press conference within hours, claiming this proved the aliens were too dangerous to keep on Earth. How do we know this was an inside job? He demanded. How do we know they didn't bomb themselves to gain sympathy? The accusation was horrible and completely false, but enough people believed it to matter. That's when Maya discovered something that made her blood run cold. While investigating the bombing, she uncovered secret communications between certain Kithra in different refugee camps. The messages were encoded in chemical signatures that only her species could read, but Maya was a trained diplomat. She knew how to spot conspiracy when she saw it. A group of her own people, led by a former war chief named Thane, had been planning something unthinkable. Instead of being grateful refugees accepting human charity, they wanted to take Earth by force. Thane had been a hero during the wars on their homeworld, a brilliant strategist who had held off the Devourers longer than anyone thought possible. But those same skills that made him a great defender also made him a dangerous enemy. We are not beggars, Thane's messages said. We are Kithra. We do not bow to lesser species, no matter how kind they pretend to be. This world will be ours, as it should have been from the beginning. The worst part was how they planned to do it. Thane's followers had been secretly collecting human genetic material, hair from barber shops near the camps, blood samples from medical waste, even skin cells from handshakes with human volunteers. They were using the stolen DNA to grow biological weapons specifically designed to target human physiology while leaving Kithra completely unharmed. Maya felt sick reading the technical details. These weapons attacked the human nervous system, causing paralysis within hours and death within days. The worst part was that they looked exactly like common earth plants: roses, daisies, oak trees. Humans would never suspect anything until it was too late. Dr. Wilson discovered the plot by accident during a routine medical check on Kithra refugees. His hybrid blood started reacting strangely whenever he got near certain individuals. At first, he thought it was a medical issue, but then he realized his altered DNA was detecting the bioweapon signatures that Thane's people were carrying on their clothes and skin from their secret laboratories. Wilson faced an impossible choice that kept him awake at night. If he exposed a conspiracy, it would prove Senator Davis right. Every Kithra on Earth would be branded as a potential terrorist and deported back to empty space to die. 50,000 innocent refugees would pay the price for a few hundred conspirators. But if he stayed silent, Thane would eventually succeed in conquering Earth, enslaving or killing every human on the planet. Maya was dealing with her own horrible dilemma. She could warn the human authorities about Thane's plot, but that would mean betraying her own species. Even worse, she'd have to admit that Kithra technology was being used as a weapon against the very people who had saved them. Every act of human kindness would be repaid with death and conquest. While Maya and Wilson struggled with their consciences, Thane decided he was tired of waiting. On a calm Thursday evening, he released the first batch of bioweapons in Yellowstone National Park. Within hours, the famous geyser started changing color. The pine trees began growing strange new branches that pulsed like heartbeats. The grass turned silver and started moving without any wind. Earth's forests were being converted into something alien, something that would be paradise for Kithra and poison for humans. Wilson watched the news reports with horror, knowing that his silence had allowed this to happen. But Maya had made her decision too. She picked up her communicator and called Human Emergency Services. "This is Ambassador Maya," she said, her voice shaking. "I need to report an act of biological terrorism against Earth. And yes, it's coming from my own people." The bioweapon spread like wildfire across Earth's continents, and watching it happen was like witnessing a nightmare in slow motion. What started in Yellowstone didn't stay in Yellowstone. Within 72 hours, the alien transformation had jumped to forests in Canada, then to the Amazon rainforest, and finally to the woodlands of Europe and Asia. Satellite images showed entire mountain ranges changing color from green to an eerie silver blue. Rivers were turning into something that looked more like liquid mercury than water. Dr. Wilson stood in the emergency command center watching the real-time footage, and he could feel the alien DNA in his bloodstream reacting to what he was seeing on the screens. His hybrid biology was telling him that Earth's ecosystem was being rewritten at the molecular level. Every tree, every blade of grass, every flower was being converted into something that would be perfect for Kithra, but deadly poisonous for humans. Maya worked alongside him, both of them surviving on coffee and determination as they tried to understand exactly what Thane's bioweapon was doing. The science was incredibly complex, but the result was simple and terrifying. Earth was being transformed into a new Kithra homeworld, and humans would slowly suffocate as their planet's atmosphere changed around them. "We need to synthesize a counteragent," Wilson said, staring at the biological readouts that made his head spin. "But I can't figure out how to reverse the process without killing everything the bioweapon has already touched." That's when Maya made a suggestion that chilled Wilson to the bone. "What if we use your hybrid blood as a template? You're part human, part Kithra. Maybe your biology could teach us how to create something that works for both species." Wilson knew what she was really asking. To create enough counteragent to stop the bioweapon, he'd have to undergo another transformation. But this time, instead of just adding a little Kithra DNA to his human system, he'd have to become something much more alien. The process might save both species, but it would probably destroy everything that made him human. How much more alien are we talking about? Wilson asked, though he already suspected the answer. Maya looked at the projections on her tablet. About 60% Kithra, 40% human. You'd still be you, but different. Very different. Wilson thought about his life before the Kithra arrived. He'd been a simple emergency room doctor with a small apartment, a cat named Buddy, and a routine that never changed much. Now he was Earth's only hope of stopping an alien bioweapon, and the cure required him to stop being human. He looked at the spreading silver forest on the monitor and made his choice. Let's do it. The transformation took place in a sealed laboratory with both human scientists and Kithra biospecialists working together. Wilson lay on a medical table while alien biomatter was slowly introduced into his bloodstream through dozens of 4 tubes. Maya watched his vital signs as his human DNA was systematically rewritten. His skin took on a slight silver tinge. His eyes became more like Kithra eyes, able to see biological signatures invisible to normal humans. His brain chemistry changed so dramatically that he started thinking in ways that were part human logic, part alien intuition. When it was over, Wilson was barely recognizable. He could still speak English, still remembered his human life. But he was something new, a true hybrid who belonged fully to neither species. The counteragent they synthesized from his transformed blood worked perfectly, stopping the bioweapon dead in its tracks and slowly reversing the damage to Earth's ecosystems. But the political damage seemed irreversible. Senator Davis used a bioweapon attack to push through emergency legislation that would deport every Kithra from Earth within 30 days. They've proven they can't be trusted, he declared at rally after rally. First they come begging for help, then they try to steal our planet. How many more attacks will it take before we protect ourselves? Maya revealed to Wilson why Thane had been so determined to conquer rather than coexist. He represents the old way of thinking, she explained. In traditional Kithra culture, accepting charity from another species was seen as shameful. Warriors like Thane believed that taking help made us weak, made us slaves. They'd rather die fighting than live by depending on others' kindness. Just when it seemed like human-alien relations were finished forever, something incredible started happening at the grassroots level. Regular people began showing up at the refugee camps, not to protest, but to protect. Military veterans formed volunteer security teams to guard the camps from extremists. Retired teachers continued giving English lessons to Kithra children even after the government banned it. Doctors and nurses kept providing medical care despite threats to their licenses. The movement grew beyond what anyone expected. Parents brought their kids to play with Kithra children. Farmers donated food. Construction workers helped repair bomb damage for free. When government officials tried to shut down the camps by force, they found thousands of human civilians standing in the way, linking arms with the refugees they'd come to see as neighbors and friends. Maya watched this grassroots protection movement with amazement. Your species continues to surprise me, she told Wilson. Even when your leaders fail you, your people find ways to do what's right. The pressure from ordinary citizens became too much for politicians to ignore. Maya made the final decision that sealed Thane's fate. She personally turned over all the evidence of conspiracy to human authorities, including the locations of every secret biolab and the names of every collaborator. Real strength isn't about never asking for help, Maya told the Joint Human Kithra Council. Real strength is admitting when your people are wrong and making sure it never happens again. 2 years had passed since the bioweapon crisis, and Earth looked like a completely different world. If you had visited the planet back then, you would have been amazed by what humans and Kithra had built together. The refugee camps were long gone, replaced by incredible hybrid cities that seemed to grow out of the landscape like living organisms. Buildings made from a combination of human steel and Kithra biomaterials could actually heal themselves when damaged and adjust their temperature based on who was living inside. The medical breakthroughs were beyond anything humans had dreamed of. Kithra biotechnology could regrow lost limbs in weeks instead of decades. Cancer became as treatable as a common cold because alien biohealers could reprogram diseased cells back to health. Meanwhile, human engineering had solved problems that Kithra had struggled with for centuries. Their new bioships were stronger, faster, and could survive in any environment thanks to human-designed backup systems. Dr. Wilson had become something of a celebrity, though he'd never wanted the attention. His transformation had saved both species, but it had cost him his purely human identity forever. His skin had a permanent silver undertone. His eyes could see biological signatures that normal humans couldn't detect. And his brain worked in ways that combined human logic with Kithra intuition. Some people called him a hero. Others whispered that he was no longer truly human. Wilson didn't care much about either opinion. He was too busy with his new project. The Joint Colony Ship Program was his baby, and it represented everything beautiful about human Kithra cooperation. These weren't just vehicles for travel. They were floating cities designed to carry families from both species to new worlds. The ships combined the best of both technologies, Kithra bioengineering that could grow food, recycle air, and heal damage, plus human mechanical systems that provided reliable power, navigation, and defense. Wilson spent most of his days in construction bays, watching human welders work alongside Kithra biosculptors to create something that neither species could have built alone. Children from both worlds played in the ship's gardens while their parents designed new homes among the stars. It was everything he'd hoped for when he first volunteered to help dying aliens in space. Then everything changed on a quiet Tuesday morning when the long-range sensors started screaming alerts that no one wanted to hear. Maya was the first to recognize the sensor readings, and the color drained from her face when she saw them. "No," she whispered, staring at the display screen. "They can't have found us. We were so careful." The Devourers had arrived at the edge of Earth's solar system. These weren't just alien invaders or another species looking for resources. The Devourers were something much worse, ancient artificial intelligences that had been consuming worlds for thousands of years. They didn't want to rule planets or enslave populations. They wanted to eat everything. Every tree, every ocean, every living being would be broken down into raw materials to fuel their endless expansion across the galaxy. Wilson looked at the tactical displays showing the approaching Devourer fleet. Hundreds of massive ships, each one the size of a small moon, were moving steadily toward Earth. Their technology was so advanced that they could strip mine an entire planet in a matter of days. This was what had destroyed the Kithra homeworld and forced Maya's people to flee across the stars for generations. The logical response would have been to run, pack up the colony ships, load everyone aboard, and find another star system to hide in. That's what the Kithra had always done before. That's what any reasonable species would do when faced with an enemy they couldn't possibly defeat. But something remarkable happened instead. Both humans and Kithra chose to stand and fight together. "We're not running," declared President Chun during an emergency session of combined Earth-Kithra Council. "This is our home now, all of our home, and we're going to defend it." Maya felt tears in her eyes as she watched the preparations begin. Human military ships joined formation with Kithra biovessels. Children from both species were evacuated to underground shelters built with hybrid technology. Soldiers who had never fought alongside aliens trained with weapons they'd never seen before. It was chaos, but it was beautiful chaos. Two worlds becoming one in the face of impossible odds. As Maya watched the combined fleet take positions around Earth, she finally understood what humans had really given her people. It wasn't just food, shelter, and medical care. It wasn't even friendship, though that had been precious beyond measure. Humans had taught the Kithra how to have something worth protecting. For generations, her people had been nomads, always ready to run, never putting down roots deep enough to hurt when they had to leave. But humans had shown them a different way. They'd shown them what it meant to call a place home, to build something beautiful, and then to stand guard over it no matter what came to the darkness. Earth didn't just offer us sanctuary, Maya told Wilson as they watched the fleet preparation from a command center. It taught us that sometimes the strongest thing you can do isn't running away from danger. It's finding something so precious that you'd rather die protecting it than live without it. The Devourers were coming, and the battle would be the hardest either species had ever faced. But for the first time in Kithra history, they weren't running. They were home, they were standing with friends, and they were ready to fight for something worth saving.